All right, we are officially live. Daniel, I'm so happy that I get to talk to you today because there's like two things that not only do nurses want, but really everyone wants is I think it's freedom. And for
Mhm.
me, I optimize for freedom from a standpoint of I want the freedom of health to go where I want, to do what I want, to have the body that allows me to run and, take care of the people I
Mhm.
love. But there's another part of that which is financial freedom. And
Mhm.
financial freedom allows for a lot of things, taking care of someone. But when you go to the doctor, who that medical bill, right? Food,
Mhm.
security, our home. So what I've seen is that we both tailor to a specific group, aka our beloved nurses. I see that so many nurses treat their paycheck like a lottery ticket. Spend first, stress later, or you know what, I'll just work a couple more shifts to pay for XYZ. But the truth is that you can work 12-hour shifts, make over 100K, you're in California,
Mhm.
wherever, but still live paycheck to paycheck. And I feel like there is a gap there. And so I wanted to bring you on today. You're a finance coach. You help nurses take control of their money, real wealth, not just have money in the bank, but build real wealth. So just like we can help nurses take care of control of their health. So like what do you see that nurses struggle even if they're making a lot of money and they're working these high paying, high stress jobs? Like what are some of the problems that you've seen? Because you've been a nurse yourself. I would love to hear your story.
For sure, man. For sure. A lot of these like discoveries and conclusions that I found about what keep nurses stuck is because I used to deal with it myself. I worked at the bedside for 3 years, and a lot of us is because we lose the plot. We kind of get lost in our careers, and sometimes we don't question like why we work all these shifts, why we want to make money, and ultimately it does come down to freedom. Because if you really sit down and think about it, you have to ask yourself like what even is the utility of money, like why do we even want money in the first place? And I think for most people money is just a means to an end, right? At the end of the day, having more money in your account, just numbers on a screen, doesn't mean too much, right? The thing that we're actually after is more freedom, exactly what you just talked about. We want more freedom to do what we want, when we want, with the people that we want, right? Ultimately more time with like friends and family, be able to travel more time to spend ourselves, our health, our fitness, whatever that might be. So if the whole point of money is to have a higher quality of life, like let's not lose the plot in that, right? Let's make sure that we keep the main thing the main thing. And the only thing that money does is that it rids you of your money problems. So you don't have to worry about paying the bills. You don't have to worry about, can I pay off my debt? Am I going to be able to retire, comfortably, all those things. So my job, yes, it is to help people, get rid of the money problems, to have better money habits, pay the bills comfortably, get rid of debt, learn how to invest. But it's with the end goal in mind that you're going to have a better quality of life on the opposite end. So you can focus on your health, your fitness, more time with friends and family, just have that freedom overall.
And it seems to me like you're looking at money from a totally different perspective. And I think when it comes to building wealth and health, there is a warped perception around money and health that's like we're chasing money, but you're telling us what is it for? What are you gonna do with that once you get it? Like, where is the direction? And so can you walk us through a little bit? Like, where were you before? Did you always have this mindset of looking at money as like a tool? Which I think that's something that we can dive in because a lot of people don't
Mm,
understand that it's just a transfer of energy to XYZ, joy,
yeah.
freedom. So like what do you think nurses are how do you think they're looking at money?
Yeah, dude, I think that's a really good question. Dude, most people that go into nursing, they don't do it because they're super money hungry, right? I mean, if they do, I'm sad to say, like that's not the best route to go about making money. Is becoming a nurse. There's a lot more efficient ways, right? You do your own business, you get into, financial services, what have you. But with nursing, it's because these people, they want to help other people, they want to have a stable job, they want work-life balance, right? So they want a pretty balanced life overall. But one thing that happened to me is, as you grow older and like life hits you in the gut, you realize that all the problems that you have in life are money problems. To live in this day and age is very expensive. Inflation's through the roof. It's so hard to buy a house. Especially if you live like in California or like New York and some of these more like higher cost of living areas, like everything costs money. So for me, like growing up, I'm never really someone that cared about becoming super rich or even cared that much about money. I just wanted enough to sustain myself. And in the future, whenever I have a wife and kids, want to make sure that I can put food on the table and not have to worry too much about it. Right? That's all I really ever really wanted. So I was never someone that was hyper focused on money. But as I started to work as a nurse and started to become more and more of an adult, more of like independent adult, I realized that if you don't ever solve these money problems, they'll always like put a ceiling on the things that you actually want to do, right? Like I wanted to, like, in the future, a big vision of mine whenever I have kids is, I want to be there for my kids. I want to take them to basketball practice, soccer games. I want to pick them up from school, right? I didn't want to be that guy or that father that wasn't there. And for me at that time, I was working night shifts on the psych unit, just tired all the time, super burnt out, and life was already hard then without a family. So I can't even imagine what it's like whenever I have a family, have more responsibility, have a mortgage, and then I'm just not there for my kids. So for me to get to that point where I'm there for my kids, I'm present for them, I have the life that I want for myself, I have the freedom. I had to make sure that I wasn't in a scenario where I was a slave to paychecks, right? I had to work the night shift, I had to pick up extra shifts. So that was what was really important to me, was just getting rid of that. I think that was stopping me from having that freedom and that life that I really wanted for myself. And that's where I started to view money as a tool. I didn't want to worship money. I didn't want it to be the main thing. I just wanted to get to the point where money was not something that would constrain my life anymore, so that I could have that freedom. Right? Money is just a means to an end for me.
I love that. And I don't want to go over the fact that like so many nurses go into the field with a mission to serve and impact and to care. And it's like you mentioned, if you want to make money, there are so many different better ways to do it. Same thing why I'm in fitness too. Like fitness is hard. It's if
Yep.
I wanted to make money, I would do real estate. I might do something else, right? But I think that's why I resonate with nurses so much is because I too have the same kind of headspace
Hmm.
that's like, if I'm going to be a trainer and chase my passion, does that mean I have to live a kind of like a a shitty lifestyle and not have freedom to, do things that make me like,
Hmm.
happy because I'm chasing my passion? But what you're saying and what's really true is that we can have it all. As nurses, you can have the health, you can have the career that you're able to impact, and you can grow financial wealth
Hmm.
to take care of a lot of those money problems. So that way you can be with your kids. That way you can on that weekend be with your kids at the basketball games and be
Right.
happy and to be able to take your family out to a vacation, right?
Dude.
And
Dude.
so
100%.
some of the things that because I talked to a lot of nurses about their health and their fitness, there's a lot of burnout, obviously, that we know, some lifestyle creep that I've seen, emotional spending as well because you're so burned out. So a lot of nurses I see kind of take that stress and then it goes into emotional spending, whether it's on food, whether it's on shopping. I mean, have you seen some of that just from your experience? I'm curious, if you have any insights around that.
Dude, yeah, 100%. So honestly, I should probably talk about this a bit more to my clients and like to my Instagram. But a big reason why I was able to, start my own business and do all these things outside of nursing is because I put so much focus on working harder on myself than I did at my job. And like, no doubt about it, nurses are like some of the hardest working people that I know. But the thing is, like, we're so conditioned to just work hard at our job. We're not taught to work hard on ourselves outside of work, right? And that's just the nature of being a nurse, right? Like your whole job is to take care of other people, and oftentimes at the expense of ourselves. But you really have to make sure that you fill up your cup first, because that's what's going to make you the best nurse anyways, right? You're going to be able to show up as the best version of yourself at your job, to your friends and family, and more importantly for yourself and your own goals, right? Like the person that you have the most responsibility towards is yourself, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And for me personally, I always prioritize mental health and physical health over anything else, over my job, over money, for my business, over everything else, because if I don't take care of myself first, everything else is going to start to just collapse, so whenever I was working as a nurse, made sure that I would do my best to get enough sleep. I definitely didn't get enough sleep. I got as much as I could, working night shifts, and always on point with my diet, made sure I didn't miss workouts, always did meditations like twice a day, always made sure that I was learning, reading books, just making sure I did what I could to take care of my mental, because working as a nurse is such a high rate of burnout for a very specific reason, because we just see so much trauma day in and day out. And if you don't take care of yourself, I don't know how other nurses do it, but I was barely holding on. So the only things that propped me up were these practices outside of my job, working out, meditating, like good sleep, and I think that's the most important thing. more important than anything else, more important than money, is making sure that you take care of yourself.
I'm so glad and appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that. And it's hard, right? For nurses, it's where, nurses are conditioned to serve others. And it almost feels like, why would I work on myself? Because that's kind of selfish to then
Mm-hmm.
work on myself when I have everyone else around me. But I think
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to communicate this, and what you're saying too is that when you pour into yourself, it's not selfish. If anything, selfless, right? Because if you don't pour into yourself, you won't be 100% for anybody else, whether it's your patients, colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
your family. And so I love that you were taking care of your health early on,
Mm-hmm.
which then gave you the opportunity to branch out. I mean, can you walk me through some of the toughest parts of like you being bedside, burning out, like kind of like there? Like I'm so curious to hear some of these stories during that
Yeah,
time.
dude. Yeah, yeah. So, for me, I worked as a psych nurse, which is very niche, right? If any other nurses are watching this, and I tell them that I'm a psych nurse, they're like, dude, God bless you, because it's very different than other types of nursing. But the thing is, if you're a med surg nurse, if you're an ICU nurse, you deal with a lot of psych patients too. You can't run away from psych patients. They're everywhere. But yeah, it's very intense just because just the nature of it. It's very it's psychiatry essentially, right? So of course we're not treating people for like medical problems, but it's more so behavioral, or they're at risk for harming themselves or other people, so you're always on alert. It's not always the safest job either, and sometimes you're put in extremely like dangerous situations. My life was never like super threatened like at times, but yeah, you just deal with a lot of stress, right? Sometimes people are cursing you out, you deal with verbal abuse. Sometimes there's the threat of like physical abuse as well. Cortisol is always high, right? Whenever you're in an environment like that, you just have to be on edge. You just have to. You can't be casual in situations like that. And then just like the day in and day out of it, I would say psych nurses have one of the highest rates of burnout. And I just think like the monotony of it all was probably the hardest part. Just being like, dang, like this is hard work, but things I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna have to do this. Like, am I gonna have to do this for the next 30, 40 years? I think that's the toughest thing, right? Because human beings are very resilient, but whenever you don't know how long you have to suffer, I think that's what makes it. I think that makes the suffering a lot worse. So that's why for me, it's just really important to get to the point where I had like an exit strategy, so I can build a life that I truly wanted for myself. But yeah, dude, I would say the hardest thing is getting to the point where you feel burnt out at your job, but you don't know how to get out of it. Things to think like, should I just switch to another specialty? I don't know. I don't know if I'll like that. Um, but yeah, that was definitely the hardest thing.
I can imagine being in the blender like this. It's like because you're grinding, you're in it. It's hard to take a step back and almost look at, hey, where is the light at the end of? Is there an exit strategy? So let's say for nurses who are in this place right now, maybe they have a chance to just have 5 minutes to kind of think about, where am I going? I don't see the end of the light of the tunnel. I talked to a lot of nurses, Daniel, and they're 6 months in to med surge, and they're
Mm-hmm.
bawling to me because they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm burned out. I didn't sign up for this. I'm losing my health. Like, how do you even help navigate, or what should someone at least think about 6 months in, a year in, or maybe they're 5 years in and they're like, I don't think I can do this for another 20 years. What
Mm-hmm.
are some things for nurses to at least think about and ponder if they're in this
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're in the situation where you're just like so like caught up in the weeds, you don't know what to do, like the overarching thing that you have to keep in the back of your mind is like if you're not happy where you're at right now, like kind of going back to what we said earlier, like start working harder on yourself than you do at your job. Right. The solution is not to pick up extra shifts, right? Like, to like grind your way out of it from that perspective,
Ooh,
right?
you're
Like
gonna have
work
to say
harder on
that like
yourself.
one more time, man, because I literally just had a conversation with one of our clients today who's going through some financial stuff, and she sent us her schedule, and it was like just OT. It was like there's no breaks for like three
Yeah.
weeks and we had to have
Yeah.
a tough conversation of like, what are your priorities? Because yes, we know you want to pay off loans and
Mhm.
all that, but look, if that's going to take 5 or 6 years, what happens when you sacrifice your health because you want to pay that off so fast? You're missing the whole point, is because you're going to
Right.
burn out in a year and that loan isn't going to get paid off anyway. So what if we took a step back and focus on you, which then if anything, you're going to get more energy. You're going to pay that loan off faster because now you're going to work more. You're going to feel more productive.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to maybe start a side hustle, whatever that is.
Mhm.
So I think the fact that you keep saying work on yourself harder than your job cannot be said enough times for
Mhm.
nurses. I think we got to drill that into their heads because it's becoming an epidemic. It's an issue across the board.
Dude,
So,
it's hard for me to blame people whenever they do that because that's how we're
yeah,
conditioned, right? Just work hard, keep on
yeah,
working hard. Eventually, you'll get what you want, right? But you have to fix the way that you solve problems, right? You have
mm,
to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, be very intentional about why you're doing something before you decide to commit to working so hard, right? Ask yourself, why am I picking up all these extra shifts, right? Just keep it, ask yourself, like, why, like 3 or 4 times, and then you'll eventually get to the root cause of why you're doing certain. And then ask yourself, what I'm doing right now, what I plan to do in the future, is that in alignment with why I want to
mm,
do it, right? And if you're someone that's super burnt out, picking up extra shifts, if you ask yourself like why you're doing, is it actually aligning with like the life that you actually want for yourself? And chances are like probably not, right? Probably not. If you feel burnt, you feel stuck, what can you do today to get yourself closer to that actual goal? Right. Because for me, yeah, I wanted to make an exit out of nursing like sooner rather than later. I mean, the charge nurse was always asking me, like, hey, Daniel, like, do you want to pick up extra shifts? Right. And to me, the answer was always a resounding no. Because whenever I got home from the hospital, yeah, it's like I was gonna work, but I'm not gonna work for the hospital. I'm gonna work on building my life like my dream. Right. I'm gonna work on learning how to invest, build out, this business that I want for myself. So like no, I'm not gonna work at the hospital because I'm too busy working on the life that I want for myself. So be very intentional with working hard. Nothing wrong with working hard. Like, please continue working hard, but work hard towards making the life that you want for yourself, not just working extra shifts.
exactly. We got to work. We got to shift the mindset that we got to work smarter, not harder. And, I wasn't a nurse, but I was working a 9 to 5. I was in the corporate world. And so we're all conditioned to work hard, right? Our bosses are like, work hard, work hard. You're going to get rewarded for it. You're going to get that next promotion. But I learned early on that I remember I was in a position and I remember my directors were like, Dustin, hey, you're a great worker. You want to level up. You should stay here. And I'm done at 5. Just stay here until 6 or 7 and really grind because look at
Right.
everyone else is doing it. But you know what?
Mhm.
I had a meeting and I put some boundaries on. Hey, my role is 9 to 5. At 5, I'm done because I'm working on myself. I'm going to the
Mhm.
gym. I'm taking my health. I'm reading. I'm learning. I'm learning how to invest. I'm learning what the exit strategy is, and which put me in a position today to have some at least a level of freedom that allows me to do what I do today. And so to kind of go to your point, where can nurses start thinking? Let's say you're a nurse, they're like, okay, cool, Dustin and Dan, you get it. We have to invest in ourselves.
Mhm.
Where do I start? Let's say I'm not picking up OT anymore. I'm working 312s, which means I have a good amount of time on my day off, but I'm scrolling on my phone. I don't have direction. But where can they start to learn how to invest and grow their wealth?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you're someone that has money issues, like you don't feel financially stable, you feel like you're living page to paycheck, let's just go back to what you learned in nursing school, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So that basically just says that you need to be able to feel like you're safe, you're secure, you're comfortable before you can start focusing on like self-actualization, like your goals and your dreams, all that stuff. Um, so get to the point where you can become financially stable, right? If you have all this credit card debt, let's nip that in the bud, right? If you don't have an emergency fund, let's just really focus on those two things. Because once you don't have any more high interest debt breathing down your neck, once you have an emergency fund that will sustain you in the case that anything emergent or any accidents ever happen, then you could actually start to have the capacity to start thinking about building a better life, right? It's really hard to think about how can I start investing? How can I start my own business? How can I start a side hustle or make this pivot of my career? Whenever you have all these like low level problems holding you down, right? So if you have any credit card debt, let's get rid of that ASAP. If you don't have anything in your savings, let's cut back on the eating out. Let's cut back on unnecessary shopping so we can start to build some money inside your savings, right? So I would definitely start there. Um, and then also just outside of work, right? Don't like numb yourself by like going out all the time or just being distracted all the time. Like I think one of the most valuable things you can do is just take like quiet time for yourself so you can reflect, so you can start just like having a good relationship with that voice inside your head. Because I think if you're always distracted, you're always doing things, you don't give yourself time to think, you don't give yourself time to reflect. And dude, for me, my best ideas come from just like sitting in silence, whether that's going on walks or meditating. It's like having your own therapist in your head. Helps you work through your problems, help you come up with like new ideas. It's been such a game changer for me, right? Just be able to sit in silence. But I feel like a lot of nurses, since we deal with a lot, we're busy all the time, we're stressed out, we just want to distract ourselves with the next thing. So I would start there. I would keep it pretty simple.
I love that. I love that it comes back to getting some time to yourself. And it's hard to turn off the noise. I'm not a nurse, but I understand it. It's hard if you're, especially if you're working 4/8, that fifth day, your brain it doesn't know that it has to take a rest day. And it's challenging to switch from sympathetic over to parasympathetic. And so that's why I'm so passionate about health and fitness, because I truly believe that if a nurse is able to nurse their body, they're hydrated, they're doing the stress management, it gives you at least a little bit of gap to then think about, where am I going? How do I invest? Right?
Yeah.
That's like the hierarchy of needs. If we're just trying to swim and make above water, we can't think about growth, right? And so
All
we
right.
got to get
Yeah.
out of that water first. And I love that you're saying pay off your loans first, build an emergency fund. Not only is an emergency fund, it's not going to save your life, but mentally it puts you in a position where you feel safe to then think about growth. You can't think about growth if you're just barely surviving. That's just human
Exactly.
nature, right?
Yeah.
So, I
100%.
mean, when it comes to having an emergency fund, what do you recommend? So like for a nurse, okay, cool, pay off my credit card debt, stop spending going out, like door dashing, start cooking at home, start kind of cutting some these spending.
Hmm.
How much does that savings account look like? Where do we start? Do we just put that in our checkings account? Specifically, how do we do that?
Hmm.
Can you walk through a couple steps?
Yeah, for sure. So a standard emergency fund is usually anywhere between 3 to 6 months, right? So the whole premise of having an emergency fund is like worst case scenario, you get fired from your job or you have to quit for whatever reason, that you have enough runway to last you 3 to 6 months. Or basic living expenses. Usually I don't include things like going out to eat or online shopping or stuff like that, just because, in a state of emergency where you don't have a job, you probably won't be spending a lot of money on stuff like that. So emergency funds should cover basic things like rent, bills, utilities, groceries, pet expenses, insurance, like all that stuff. Just so in the case of emergency, if you it's like a fire extinguisher, right? Like break glass in case of emergency type of deal. So everyone has different expenses though. So what you want to do to figure out how much you should have in an emergency fund is to calculate your basic living expenses, like all the ones I just listed out, on a monthly basis, and then you can multiply that by three so that you can get your 3 month emergency fund. And then same thing for if you want to build a 6 month emergency fund. So that amount is different for everyone. For some people, a 3 month emergency fund might be 10,000. For the next person, it might be 20,000. Really depends on your monthly expenses, like cost of living, all that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And I think also something for nurses to pay attention, or kind of think about, is like the first step to doing this is to look at your finances. You
Yeah.
have to look. I
Hmm.
think, dude, it's crazy. I'll talk to like nurses, and because we got to figure out how much they can invest in their fitness, I'll ask them questions. Hey, so how much do you spend on DoorDash a month? Oh, what about here? I actually don't even know. I just
All
swipe
right.
my card and I just keep on working. Y'all, you guys have to look at what's going in and out as a first step. It's like you want to lose weight, but you don't even know what's going in your mouth for the past 24
Exactly.
hours. It's going to be very hard to change. So, like, I know it could be scary for a lot of nurses because they're like, oh, I don't even want to look at the spending. Hey, you have to start there, right?
Exactly. Dude,
Like I just had to
exactly.
throw that
Dude,
out there.
dude, what gets measured gets managed, right? And
What
like I
all the time.
I think it's great to use nursing analogies whenever I speak to my clients because nurses are so good at their job, and it's like telling a nurse like if they had a patient that had just like really high blood pressure, right? They wanted to improve it, and then but that patient just refused to ever like measure their blood pressure, right? Like how are you ever going to know whether those interventions that you're doing for the patient or the patient is doing for themselves if it's actually working? You won't ever know, right? You're always in the dark, right? It's the same thing for a nurse that wants to improve her fitness, his or her fitness. If you want to like eat less calories, to a certain extent, you have to measure that, right? The same thing with finances. If you want to improve your spending, if you want to improve your finances, you should probably budget, right? Otherwise, we're just shooting in the dark. Otherwise, it's always like qualitative measuring, which is not always the best, right? Because I mean, we're human beings. We're not robots, right? We have emotions. We have decision fatigue. We're impulsive sometimes. So you need objective measures to measure your progress. Otherwise, it's just an uphill battle.
And it reduces a lot of stress, because a lot of nurses feel like, oh my gosh, if I start tracking everything I do, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But what's crazy is that the payoff is that you're less stressed because now it's objective. Like I like that you use a nurse analogy. Patients, your guys' patients, how many things are they hooked up to on that freaking monitor? Heart rate,
All
blood
right.
pressure. Every time
All
you
right.
come in, before you even give them a freaking whatever
Mhm.
pills they need to take, what are you doing? You are tracking their metrics every fucking hour, right? So it's like, if you want to improve something, why aren't you tracking? The first thing that we do, Daniel, when we work with the nurse, is we don't give them a meal plan. We don't give them a workout. The first week is tracking. Take a picture of everything you eat. You're going to track your steps. We have a dashboard that
Yeah.
literally tracks everything that you do for a week. And then after that first week, look at where you're at. This is where you're missing. We're just going to work on that one thing. And so it just creates this vision, right? And so I like that you said what gets tracked gets measured. And this can be applied for anything, finances, your fitness, man, like we can go on and on, but
Mhm.
that's cool. Okay, so I want to pivot a little bit and shift gears. So we'll kind of continue this journey. All right, Daniel, I'm a nurse. I have my emergency fund, 6 months, I'm cool. Credit card loans are all kind of paid off.
Mhm.
How, now that I can think, what's the exit strategy? What should I be thinking about? Do I invest in crypto? Do I buy Bitcoin right now? Or like what do I do?
Dude,
Like
this is the fun
I
part. This is the fun part.
let's
Yeah,
let's get into it.
for sure,
And
man.
I just want to drop, hey, if you guys have questions, drop it in the comments. I see a couple of you guys. Nice to meet you guys. Let's just wave to everybody here. I'm just gonna drop a comment. Drop. So we'll start doing some Q&As now too if anyone has questions. But okay, cool. So all right, y'all. So we are going to talk about if you have your emergency fund and you've paid off all your credit card stuff and stop spending money on a bunch of DoorDash and online shopping. Okay, save that for later. If you really want to build real wealth, we're about to jump into it now. Okay, so drop your questions. All right, Daniel, let's drop some bombs. What do we do? Buy Ethereum or Bitcoin or what do we do? Do I buy stocks? Where do I go?
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah. So yeah, once you get to the place where you're financially stable, like that gives you the room to start thinking about the future, and like building the dream life that you want for yourself, right? You got to start asking yourself, like, okay, I'm stable. Like, what do I want, in the next couple of years, the next year, maybe even 30, 40 years from now? And overwhelmingly a lot of nurses, they want the option to retire early or they want the option to work part-time, right? Not saying they want to run away from their job forever, but they just want the ability to do that if they want, right? So more so working because they want to and not because they have to. And of course, the big barrier in the way for people doing that is finances, 100%, right? So um always like to start off with long-term investing first, right? Just making sure that 65 and beyond is taken care of. And then once it's taken care of, then we can start working way backwards for retiring earlier. So it's actually pretty simple. Typically people have like a workplace 401k or 403b. I would definitely max out contributions there in terms of getting the employer match, right? So if your employer matches you 4%, contribute what you can to get that 4%. Is free money. Is really easy. Make sure that you invest to the right thing, right? Like don't choose things that have really high fees. You don't really need to work with a financial advisor. You just take like a month or so, learn about investments and just manage it yourself. Maybe like an S&P 500 index fund or an ETF, or maybe like a target date fund. After that, open up a Roth IRA. Try your best to get on pace to max it out every single year. Right now, if you max out a Roth IRA, I believe it's $7,000 per year. Which is equivalent to $583 every single month. If you do those two things, you'll retire very comfortably at 65 and very comfortably, right? So I would start there. It's also a good way to start learning about investments is retirement investments, starting pretty safe. Then after that, yeah, I mean, if you want to delve into individual stocks, if you want to delve into crypto, you definitely start there as well. Personally, I'm a pretty big fan of crypto. I just wouldn't start there as your intro to investing because it is
Mm,
a bit more risky. But of course, like where there's more risk, there's more potential for reward as well. You just have to make sure you do your due diligence, right? Don't just go off the advice of someone in the break room telling you to invest into crypto because they made some money on crypto. Because people will always tell you how much money they made, they will never tell you how much money they lose. Right. So yeah, just always do your own research and make sure that you believe and you understand the things that you're investing into, right? Because if you don't, you're just gambling your money. There's a very fine line between gambling and investing, right? The way that I explain it is gambling, it's just blind risk, right? But whenever you're investing, whenever you're investing, you're taking calculated risks because you understand like the fundamentals behind it. You understand like you're minimizing risk to the best of your ability, given your knowledge and your skills. So make sure you're always taking calculated risk.
I love that. I love there's 2 points to it where it's like protect your money first and then grow it because gambling is like you're literally it potentially you might be throwing it away. Now that's there's no problem with gambling, but like understand what that is. And I like that the very easiest way for nurses to do, even if you're not a nurse and you have a 401k, make sure that you are having that employer match. Like, well, that's four, it's usually what, 4 or 5%, right? For the most part.
Yeah, anyone
And
between three
that's
to
like
five percent is pretty
three to
average.
5%. It's like, that's already, you set that up alone, right? Most people are going to be good. Setting up a
Hmm.
Roth IRA, I think is also because it's tax free as well, right? And so what's that monthly if someone were to max out their Roth IRA? What's the math on that, right? Like
Yeah, they're on 583. Yeah.
583, right?
Mm.
And so that's $500 a month into that account. Um, yeah, what about like renting or buying? Um,
Hmm.
you know, have you do you dive into that or is it usually kind of around retirement? Uh, after the retirement is done, what else or what are some other ways nurses can build wealth, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, real estate is like a very popular way of investing as well. Whenever people think about what's next, it's so varied depending on where you live, right? I think you live in LA, Dustin. So I know it's hard to find real estate over there. Right? But even then, like there's a lot of creative ways where you can invest in real estate. You could like house hack, right? Where you buy a house and then you rent out the rooms so that the tenants like pay your mortgage for you, right? You just gain
Uh-huh.
equity in the house appreciates as a very fast way to grow your net worth. You could do Airbnb arbitrage where like you don't even need to own the property. You go to like the homeowner and you're like, hey, like can I it looks like you're renting out rooms. Like, can I do like Airbnb? I'll give you, some of the profits. It was a win-win for both people. So you can own Airbnbs without even having to own the property. Very little like cash down, right? You do things like that. You can buy the property, own like rental homes. There's a lot of different ways to invest in real estate. Personally, I don't do that. The thing that I would caution most people is a lot of us are looking for passive income, right? And I'm sure
Mm.
you know this, Dustin, but there's really no such thing as passive income. There's only certain forms of income more passive than others, right? Even being a landlord is not passive. Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. You got to make sure the tenants pay. There's like maintenance. There's upkeep. You're always having to like fill vacancies. It's a lot of work. My dad is a landlord, and he hates it. He hates doing it. He hates the maintenance of it. Right. Only thing it is more passive than like him working at a factory or something like that, right? But it's not truly passive. So make sure that you know what you're getting into. Nowadays, since home prices are so high, like invest in real estate, it requires more work, more due diligence than it ever has before, right? Like 20, 30 years ago, you could buy a house and call it an investment because houses were so cheap. And it was definitely going to appreciate a lot the next 10 years. But nowadays, since home prices are so expensive, there's less room for appreciation. Um, so you have to be more careful about buying a house, right? So,
100.
yeah.
Yeah, the misconception right now, I love that you hit on it. The misconception is this word passive income, right? It's all over social media. Every nurse, everyone is like passive income, but I like that there is no such thing as passive income. There actually is, but once you have a lot of capital invested, and let's say you can, kind of lend out money, make a percentage on that, yes. But for most of us and most nurses, you have to figure out, right, what is the revenue stream or income or passive income that typically requires the least work. And so it
Mhm.
seems like real estate, maybe arbitrage, all work, but it's like another job. So if you're already burned out, you don't have the health for it, you don't even have the capacity for it, might not be the smartest thing. And so
Mhm.
it seems like open up, you're doing your 401k, doing your Roth IRA, buying it in S&P 500. That seems like something that you can set it and forget it.
Mhm.
Would you agree to that as like what you would
Yeah.
recommend for nurses who are working full time and got two kids, that they're
Yeah.
kind of raising? Yeah.
Yeah. It really depends on your personality profile and also like the lifestyle that you want for yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
for me, a big reason why I don't own a home right now is because I don't want to be a homeowner. Like I don't want the responsibilities associated with it. I'm someone that wants to probably live in a couple more cities, a few more cities, maybe even internationally before I settle down. So for me to be a homeowner is just not a very prudent decision, right? So just being very intentional about decisions that you make as an investor. There's a lot of different ways to invest. There's set it and forget it ways. There's more active ways that might earn you a bit more money. Like I said earlier, the whole point of money is to have a higher quality of life. So don't choose a form of investment that's going to make your life more complicated, right? It kind of defeats the purpose.
I think that's so point. It comes back to like, what if you do make all this money, if you do have all this money, what are you going to do with it? Like, how would your life change? I always ask this question on a strategy call with someone who's interested in joining the program. I'm like, okay, you tell me you want to lose 15, 20 pounds, you want XYZ. Once you do hit that, how is your life going to change, first of all? Like, why does that even matter? Or what if you don't hit that? What would your life look like in 5 years if you don't hit this fitness goal or health goal that you have, right? Like, actually think about it, because I don't
Mhm.
really want to work with anyone just because they say I want to make money or I just want to get fit. For what?
Right.
Because
Yep.
it's hard. It takes time. It takes commitment. But if you don't have that vision or that end goal, like,
Mhm.
what are we doing? So I
Yeah.
love that like health and wealth are like very synonymous.
Dude,
You know?
I think it's
Yeah.
because they're both forms of self-care, right? Like
Mm.
a lot of people, whenever they think of self-care, they think about bubble baths, getting their hair done,
Nails done.
retail therapy,
A
right? And like,
massage. Yep.
yeah, like don't get me wrong, right? That's definitely fun, right? Definitely release some stress. But whenever you think about the highest forms of self-care, they're more so like forms of discipline, right? Like
Mm.
just going back to working harder on yourself than you do at your job. The biggest stressors in life are like money stressors, like health stressors, right? Especially health. Right? I think a lot of us take it for granted until we get like really sick. But I think
Yeah.
nurses have a really good perspective because we see sick people every single day,
Yeah.
right? We see how precious like life is, and yeah, dude, like if you don't have to worry about health issues, if you don't have to worry about money issues, dude, you have all this time, this energy to focus on building out this dream life. But whenever you deal with health issues, whenever you have money problems, you're just in survival mode. That's no way to live.
Mm.
You can't optimize for the life that you want. You're so just busy off like trying to fend off these everyday problems, right? You just feel tired, you feel broke, you just feel stressed out, you're just chronically stressed. That is, you can't really live like a super meaningful, fulfilling life in that state of mind.
That's so powerful. And I want that to kind of be the takeaway message from this is helping nurses get out of survival mode. And it seems like the two things that's keeping nurses in survival mode is number one, their health and their financial situation. Right. And because if they can get out of that, then they can really build their dream life. So nurses, like if you guys are stuck, if you guys feel like you're stuck in survival mode, at least we want to tell you that reach out to us for support. It might not even have to be us, but there is support. There is knowledge out there. We live in an amazing, I know we're kind of going down this rabbit hole of like, yeah, it's like you got to do this. But the positive thing is we live in 2025. There is Chat GPT. There is people like Daniel out there. There's people like me. There is tons of free resources out there for you guys to learn this. And there's nothing separating you from another fit rich nurse than knowledge gap and understanding your situation and applying some of these little things that, hey, it's not magic, it's very you can do it. Anyone can do it, but it's also easy not to do. It's easy to put that aside and like continue to be distracted. So I really challenge you guys to break out from that, learn, lean in for help, because it sometimes it just takes one thing. So I'm know for you, Daniel, if a nurse were to get on one call with you, their life would change. I just know that, right?
Thanks, man.
And
Yeah.
like because it is a knowledge thing. So yeah, I think that's I love that we get to have this conversation to really push this message across. I think it's much needed. I think not enough nurses are hearing it, and I think we're on the forefront of it. So yeah, I mean, any takeaways? Any takeaways so far for some of the
Yeah.
nurses who are
For sure,
tuning in?
man. Yeah. So, yeah, if you're someone that wants to, take control of your fitness, if you want to take control of your wealth, I don't want it to feel like this big, overwhelming task, right? It's just a shift in focus because if you have what it takes to be a nurse, like that's not an easy thing to do, right? You have to go through all this schooling. You have to be really like resilient. You have to show up for yourself or show up for these shifts every single day. Right? And it's just a matter of like shifting the focus to not working, not overworking yourself at work, just working on yourself, right? I mean, I'm a personal finance coach, but even I would say like the best investment that you could ever make is into yourself. right? Because that's not an investment that anyone could ever take away from you. If you invest in the stock market, there's always some risk. You never know how the market goes. Even if you buy real estate, you never know like how the market goes either. But whenever you take the time to get in that workout, to get the extra hours sleep, right, to read that book, like no one's ever going to take that away from you, right? You have full control over that. So work on yourself. I guarantee you, if you do enough of that, you become fit. You continue educating yourself, learning new things, trying new things. You just have that self care in the highest sense. Um, you will. It's impossible for you to not have the life that you want for yourself, right? You'll explore new things. You'll try new things. Like new ideas will come to your head. You'll be able to realign yourself with like your highest purpose, like the life that you actually want for yourself, and no, like life will open up for you, right? Just one step at a time, though, right? Like you don't have to view it as this one big thing. If I just had like one thing that I could, tell a nurse that felt burnt out, like, just take some time for yourself. Your next day off, go for a walk, by yourself, like no phone, no headphones, no music, anything like that. Just listen to your thoughts, and you start to get a lot more clarity. You'll feel like less stressed out. You'll give yourself the time, the space on how to actually improve your future.
I love that. And I also want to add in there too, it could feel a little scary if you're a nurse to kind of take a
Mhm,
risk. Oh, do I invest this? Do I spend money on my health? Right? It's a
mhm.
big decision, but I also want to put it into your mind of what is the risk of not taking action?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
not making a decision is a decision. So I want to put some urgency in. It's like we don't have all the time in the world. And so, like Daniel mentioned, take your next day off, even if it's an hour and you just go for a walk at the park. You deserve that. You deserve, your family
Mhm.
deserves that, your future deserves that. And so I think what's starting with that, I think a lot of nurses would have a lot of clarity to then decide what those next 5 steps are. And I just want to say I respect nurses so much is because number one, you guys are so hardworking. You've gone through probably one of the hardest things early on, which is nursing school and showing up to every shift. I always say it's like going to war for a lot of like even ICU nurses, ER nurses that we work with, ED. Like it's like crazy. I hear the stories. And it's like you already have the ethic. The work
Mhm.
ethic is there. So it's not a motive. I would say it's not a motivation issue. It's not a discipline issue. It's a lack of focus and clarity issue. And if you can fix that and you take that energy and you channel it into you and into like what we're talking about today, watch your life expand. Watch your life 10x from here. Watch yourself be so happy with true abundance, reaching your highest purpose. Daniel, I just want to say I appreciate your time. Where can they find you? All right, like where can they learn more about maybe getting some free resources or connecting
Mhm.
with you? Where can they,
For sure,
get
man.
into contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok as well, but you can find me on Instagram, Wealth Care Pros. Yeah, if you have questions for me, shoot me a DM. I also do Q&As every Monday, so just watch out for those. Just give me a follow. Um, on Mondays, you have questions, you just reply to my story, and I'll be sure to answer them. And yeah, like never be a stranger. I do my best to answer
Yeah.
every DM that I see. So if there's anything that
Hey,
you need
speaking
help with,
speaking of that,
yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off, but we did have some questions. Sorry.
Oh man,
Um,
yeah.
we have some questions here. Hey, do you have any YouTube channels, books, podcasts you recommend when starting to learn out about financial wealth? Christina, what's up? She's a new client on TVP Fit. I'm so glad you're joining. Yeah, like what kind, where can we answer her question?
Yeah. So if you're someone that really likes books, I'll give you my top three books right now. Let's see. I would say by far my favorite book regarding personal finances is called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich." Very
Hmm.
easy book to read. Actually, I have it right here.
That is a
"I Will
great
Teach You to Be
book.
Rich."
I
The
highly
reason why I
recommend
like.
that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds like you read it as well. So the reason why I like it so much is because it's very easy to read. Right. I'm not someone that grew up with super financially rich, literate parents that taught me everything. I'm not someone. I have a nursing degree. I don't have a finance degree. Right. So for me, whenever I teach my clients, I like to teach them in layman's terms so they actually understand, not technical jargon. And this book does a great job of doing the same thing. It's very casual, very fun read, very straight to the point, teaches you how to budget, how to start investing, all that good stuff. So there's that. And then in terms of good habits financially, I would actually say Atomic Habits. It's not even a personal finance book, but
Mm.
once I implement those concepts with my coaching, clients have gotten much better results. And then what's another one? I would say I'm not sure if people are familiar with this guy, but it's called the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He teaches you like wealth
You did not
principles.
just say that, dude. That is one of my
Yeah,
favorite books. I would
dude,
say that's on my
killer.
top five. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
I
dropping
love that
so many
book.
bombs. If you guys just read those three books, I think we can even just stop it there. We can just type, hey guys. So like the books, because I'm so in alignment with that. The I will teach you how to be rich, guys. Super important. I read this when I first got out of college, and that was so eye opening. Where it was like, don't worry about that $6 Starbucks you're buying every day. Don't try to cut that out to like save money. There's bigger decisions that you got to focus on, aka kind of like what you are sharing today about, you know, kind of investing, and then Atomic Habits is key because it's like it comes back to all the little things you're doing every day. Like your health is all connected to your wealth, vice versa as well. And then the almanac is like, how would you even describe that book, man?
Dude, it's
Like,
really meta. It's really conceptual, but it gets you out of the paycheck to paycheck mentality. It gets you out of the trading time for money mentality,
mm,
right? And that's what you really need to do because whether you know it or not, like as a nurse, you have a lot of social conditioning. And I speak from personal experience. Like you're taught how to work hard. You're taught like working hard equals better life. You really had to break out of that. Like if you feel like really burnt out, like, there's a reason for that. And you had to start to become very intentional about the life that you want for yourself. And working harder isn't necessarily going to get you there.
I love that. Cool. Anything else, guys, from here? We just dropped a couple of favorite financial books. Let's see. Podcasts, YouTube channels. Cool. Yeah, well, if you guys want to know more stuff about investing, definitely check out Daniel's Instagram. He's sharing a ton of great content. If you are looking to get your health back, and then really reach your fitness goals, but do it in a sustainable way, we have a program called the Metabolic Burn System where you can lose 10 to 15 pounds without giving up your favorite foods, learning how to actually have food freedom and actually do this sustainably for life. The goal for our clients is to graduate them, but give them the tools so they can be successful, so they can pass it on that generational health that we didn't grow up with. And so it seems like the same with you. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. I hope we can do this again. This was fire. I feel like we can just jump into so many different topics. But yeah, man, I just want to say I appreciate it.
Nah, dude, this was fun. We'll definitely do it again. Appreciate you, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I got us. Take care.